Welcome to another episode of Real Talk. I'm your host, Hannah Haerle, and today we are discussing mental health. Millions of people are affected by mental health issues each day, and this is an extremely important and delicate topic to discuss. I have two very special guests here to tackle this topic with me, so let's get into it. This is Real Talk. Joining me today are counselors Dr. Kelly Miller and Dr. Jim Rice. Thank you both for taking the time out of your day to be here with me. Appreciate
Thanks for
it.
having us.
So I want to start with your educational background. You know, how did you get into this field, and what are your degrees, things like that, Dr. Miller?
Sure. Well, I got a BS in marketing and business management and went into advertising, actually. And my interest in psychology was what motivates people to buy things, to do things. And so I had psychology, but I stuck with advertising. But once I moved to UINDY from Cincinnati, I decided to try psychology a little more. And so I took a class at Butler, am I allowed to say Butler, marriage and family. And I decided I wanted to really get into clinical psychology instead once I had the class. But immediately from the first class, I knew psychology was for me. So I came here, clinical psychology, got my master's, and also got my doctorate in clinical psychology. Trained at a few different schools, Ball State, IU for my internship, and then came right back to UINDY, and I am currently the director of the counseling center.
That's awesome. So what is it about UINDY that really drew you in the Indianapolis area?
I think it was primarily the clinical psychology and the opportunity to get my doctorate. The master's at Butler, it ended there, and I really wanted my doctorate. And once I came to visit UINDY, particularly, it was the residential area, the small campus. Dr. John McGilvard was the director of the program at the time, and he was so effusive about it was a new program at that time. And I just fell in love with it. The campus, everything about it, the people, everything you hear about now about UINDY campus was true then as well. It's a true community.
That's great. We're obviously very lucky to have you on campus, a part of our counseling center. And I would agree with you, Indianapolis is a special place to be, so that's great. Dr. Rice, thank you for joining us. Can you give us a little bit of background on your education and things like that?
Sure, Hannah. I got my undergraduate degree at Wright State University. I started off actually as a biology major for the first 2 years, and then started to take some psychology courses, liked them, and at that point decided to shift over to psych for my undergraduate. I then took my master's in psych at Drake University in Iowa, and my doctorate in rehabilitation psych at Southern Illinois University. I really was a bit of a subspecialist in dealing primarily with disabled and medically injured populations for several years, but would do more general work as well. And then at that point, I've done a number of different things. I've had a private practice for 20 years. I've taught at a medical school in the Caribbean. And then just working as a hospital-based psychologist as well, doing working medical surgical units.
That's awesome. So we heard from Dr. Miller. What brought you back to UINDY?
Well, this lady, okay? Dr. Miller brought me back. I was actually in Florida finishing up some work down there, dealing with some family medical issues. And as they were resolving, I basically was contacted by Dr. Miller and asked if I would consider coming up and working for the Student Counseling Center. And that was about almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We worked together in the past at a place called Medical Psychology Associates.
Okay.
So, yeah, I knew if there was any chance to get him here, that would be really great.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, that's great. That's great. So I want to know specifically, before we get into the nitty-gritty, what exactly is your job title and kind of just your day-to-day work life here at UINDY?
I'm the director of the counseling center, student counseling center, and I'm also obviously a psychologist. So my main work is just all around students. I see students just like the rest of my clinical staff, do assessments, counseling, we do workshops, we do a lot of outreach, prevention. We can get into what the center does overall, but I do just as my clinicians do. And then as the director, I'm really the person who's in charge of making sure that we are setting policies that all are about access to our services and the resources that we have available, and looking at ways that we can continue to get resources for the counseling center to provide that for the students.
Right, and we're going to get into those resources and everything that the center offers. What about you?
I'm a staff psychologist, so I basically work for her.
Okay.
And again, primarily seeing obviously student clients most of the days. Occasionally, we're involved in projects like this or others, other base services in the university community, a depression screening day, an anxiety screening day. So we do other things, but our primary work is to be involved in individual and group therapy with our student clients.
Okay, that's great. That's great. So before we get into, like I said, the nitty gritty and what services the center offers, things like that, I want to just kind of speak broadly about the topic of anxiety and depression in young adults, because it's extremely prevalent, in young adults and really anyone. So I want to talk about some coping mechanisms, just basic things that any student or young adult or just any person can kind of use throughout their day if they're feeling anxious or sad or anything like that. Just basic coping mechanisms.
Yeah, that's excellent. And Anna, you're exactly right. Anxiety, depression, those are the top things that we see in our center, and actually across the nation. As you said, it's just for anyone. So we generally, when we talk to people about coping mechanisms, it's backing up and remembering it's holistic. It has to be about self-care, first of all. Intentionally do things that help you manage that anxiety and depression by taking time for yourself. And there's a lot of different ways that we suggest coping. One might be, what do you say to yourself? Some of the self-talk can really either spiral down or can help you manage some of that anxiety, depression by taking a different perspective, talking out loud. I mean, there are even ways of, you don't necessarily have to be with other people in the room, but saying, okay, Kelly, you've got this, is much more productive in affecting your mood than saying, I'm going to fail this exam. There's no way I'm going to study. Because how we talk to ourselves is definitely how we react. Our moods are affected that way, and then our behaviors, and so it can spiral. So one thing is intentionally thinking about, what am I saying to myself that is increasing these feelings? The other thing is noticing what your body is, how it's reacting. And you want to bring down those physiological symptoms. So if your heart is racing and you're clamming everything, first of all, reminding yourself, okay, that's normal. I can have anxiety and still do well. But if it's my breathing is out of whack and everything, I can use some breathing techniques. I can listen to some music. I can listen to, there's so many apps out there now for, it's Calm and what are the other ones? But there's so many. I use Calm as an example for people, but so many that you can use for yourself to intentionally bring down those physiological reactions. Also build in some moments for yourself during the day, every day, for downtime. Mini relaxers, things to look forward to, so that you can kind of rise above the immediate, what I'm feeling, because that too will pass. Everything passes in that sense. So intentionally doing that for yourself. And I'm going to let Jim add some coping mechanisms there.
If I can maybe just reinforce one thing she said, and that is having anxiety before the big exam. We have a term for that at the center. We call that normal. Okay, not an illness, not a mental disorder. Having a blue Monday, that's normal for me. Okay, so it's normal for most of us. Right. Sometimes that doesn't mean you're clinically depressed, and so these symptoms become something of more of concern when they begin to impair us, when they interfere with our social functioning, with our work functioning, with our interpersonal relationships. So having some symptoms alone doesn't necessarily mean that you have a major problem.
Right.
Okay, and so frequently when we're seeing folks, it's usually past that point where it's not just a blue Monday or a little bit of anxiety before an exam. It's something that's really impairing and interfering with their life, and that's when it becomes something that we should be focusing on. Absolutely,
and I think it's important. There's that fine line there, of course, between, okay, this is just a bad day, and this is a bad month. This is you know what I mean? It's a prolonged thing. I will say I'm very fortunate. My mom is also a therapist. She started out in drug and alcohol abuse therapy, and she recently moved to private practice. So she's seeing all sorts of people now for a wide variety of issues. So like I said, I'm very fortunate. Mental health was never something that was ignored or pushed to the side in my household growing up. So I'm very fortunate. But I would be naive to think that everyone grew up with that same sort of background. So some people may not know when is the right time? When is it not just a blue Monday, as you said? When am I needing to get help, and how do I get that?
Well, you used one of the words right there, is it's prolonged. So that it's not just a blue day or 2 days or even a week stretch, because sometimes we just have weeks like that, we all do. But is recognizing that, wait a minute, this is really starting to impact my ability to do things. Quality of life, as Jim was saying, is impacted, and it just doesn't seem like it's getting any better. Some symptoms might be, if it's more than I just can't do this, or I'm going to fail, or I feel really sad, and you start having, it's not uncommon, unfortunately, for people to have some suicidal thoughts, or thoughts of I'm not gonna make it. Those are some signs that, you need to be talking to some individuals. And right here on campus, you have a service that is free and confidential, so of course we recommend anyone to come. And don't second guess yourself. If you're like, I'm not sure, well, they think this is bad enough, please come. We see, as you said, a variety of issues. It isn't just anxiety, depression, it's roommate issues, it's conflict resolution, it's anything. So come anytime. But I think it is important to recognize that it's normal to have some of those feelings, but if you are starting to feel like, I can't get out of this, I just feel like under this dark cloud, or anxiety is starting to impact me, that I'm avoiding situations that's impacting my opportunities, then it's time to start talking to someone. Sometimes people are afraid to go right to a therapist, so I hope later on we'll get to talk to you about what that process is and what it entails. But if you are, start out with your PCP, talk to them. They will also have some ideas for you. Now, they hopefully would refer you to a therapist if they see some things, but if that feels more comfortable to you and you're familiar with your doctor, we just want you to get that process started.
Sure. Yeah, and I think you bring up a really good point. It doesn't have to be something, what if it's not worth therapy, you know what I mean?
Right.
It can be anything, and I'm a big believer that anyone can get help.
Absolutely.
So this mental health topic and this issue, it's only really recently become an issue or a topic that's not so taboo to talk about. So how do we take that stigma away that, you don't need therapy. If you have therapy, you have real issues. It can be for everyone. So what do you say to those people who think, oh, I don't need it, therapy is only for people who, really have issues. I don't have those issues.
Yeah.
I can maybe kind of answer a part of it, and that is, I think one of the ways is certainly trying to reinforce the fact that the information that you're providing to us is confidential. Our licensing agency frowns on us if we break confidence, okay? So we don't want, and people say, well, yeah, but my professor sent me over, so you're gonna be talking with my professor. No. And except in almost no circumstance, unless the client signs a release of information, do we share information with anyone. And that includes even the health service, if we want to send someone over for medication management or for other reasons. Everything within our service is confidential. There are a couple limits to that have to deal with your intent to hurt yourself or to hurt someone else. There are some limits to that, but frankly, almost no limits. And actually, Indiana is one of the stronger states as far as sharing mental health records and breaking confidence like this is almost never occurs. So I mean, one of the ways we can try to at least attach, could there still be stigma attached to it because they're hearing things from friends or from family members? Sure, but the answer is if you're coming in to share something with us, no one else is going to know about it.
Okay.
And I would add to that also, there's been so much, probably in the last 15, 20 years, I'd say, where the field itself has done a great job of destigmatizing mental health, that wherein this generation before, it's really not so stigmatized anymore, and that's a wonderful thing, and we see that and hear that with the students. I think sometimes what happens though is students feel like, but I don't know if they don't want to displace someone who they think might have other problems, worse problems, and we say don't think that way. Mental health, as you just suggested, is for everyone. We all need assistance with that. We all need to have support. And coming to our site, as we talk to individuals, they learn ways that they can use with other people. That's the other piece of it, is that, the ideas you come up with for yourself, you have friends who might really need to hear what you've heard and learn what you've learned. So there's so many opportunities. And the other thing is we have workshops that aren't even therapy related, that are skills based, that maybe they prefer that instead of therapy.
Yeah, I was going to ask what services specifically, you guys offer and how to get involved with those as well.
Yeah. Well, so we do, here's how you get to a hold of our center. You start out with, you give us a call, or we have a student counseling center email. Starting next fall, we'll have some spots where students can just sign in themselves, or online, they can schedule themselves. But it's basically, you will talk to our assistant, our very kind assistant, Wendy, who will, if you want an appointment with us, great. The workshops that we have available, all the outreach that we do, everything is on our website that can tell you, when and where and how. And so it's very easy to get in with us. What we'll usually do, if it's not a workshop or that you just sign up for, we'll sign you up for an initial consultation with one of our clinicians, and that's where you'll just tell them what you're looking for, what you need, and then your clinician, we really customize it to what we think might be most useful for you, and we talk with you. It's a very collaborative effort. We just want to get you the best services. So that might be, if you have anxiety, that you'd like to do the anxiety workshop. Well, most people don't say, I'd like to do the anxiety workshop. But it's an opportunity to work with peers who are working on the same thing. And it depends what kind of workshop it is. Sometimes they're support groups, sometimes they are process groups. So we fit you to match what you need. If you need individual work, that's fine, but it's very customized. The number of sessions is based on your working with your clinicians. So lots of opportunities to get plugged in.
Yeah.
And as Jim said, it's confidential and everything is free too. We do not limit counseling at our center. You can have as many sessions as you want, or as little as you want.
Okay, well that's great. And it sounds like it's an amazing opportunity for students to get into therapy if it's something that they think they are interested in. And it sounds like it's, that's great that it's free and for our students. So we're going to take a quick break here, but when we come back, we're going to be talking through a Q&A that I got from students anonymously. So when we come back, we'll be covering that. This is Real Talk.
Thank you.
Are you feeling alone in your faith? UINDY Catholic gives you an opportunity to get involved in a religious community on campus, providing sacramental needs and fellowship for prospective students and giving you a sense of belonging.
We just want you guys to know that God loves you, He delights in you, and He's in awe of you, and we would love to meet you. So you should come on out.
UINDY Catholic, a community for you.
For children who may have high-functioning autism, may have ADHD, processing challenges, working memory issues, sensory integration issues, those types of challenges. It's a place where human beings are valued, children are respected. It's a progressive school that takes a hands-on approach to education.
All right, Jake, who you got? Tennessee, Georgia.
Georgia, easily, man.
Come on, Tennessee's 8.5-point dogs. Easiest spread of all time.
How?
Because they're good, and Georgia's played nobody.
At least Georgia has a defense.
Oh, come on. You're an IU fan. Your opinion doesn't matter.
My opinion doesn't matter. The only thing you know as a Purdue fan is how to lose to a 15 seed in the March Madness tournament.
We're bowl eligible, my guy. Are you? Make sure to tune in to Last Call Monday nights. We'll talk about Division I football, give you plenty of UINDY sports, some interviews in there as well, and then plenty of pro sports, whether it be NFL, MLB, the whole shebang.
Yeah, and there's at least one guy that knows what he's talking about.
Thanks for coming back. I'm Hannah Haerle, and this is Real Talk. So before we left, I mentioned that I did kind of an anonymous questions where students could send in questions that they had. And so I would love to just ask you guys some of those and see any advice that you may have. So it's kind of just going to be me asking you, and you can answer however you see fit. Okay, so finals are coming up, and I'm really stressed out. For a lot of students, this is arguably the most stressful time of the semester. What can I do to decompress, but also make sure that I am, being confident in my studying and making sure I'm taking care of my academics as well? Dr. Rice?
I have a couple of ways to respond to that. One is clearly if it's a straight academic issue, to use the academic resources here on campus to get additional tutoring or whatever you need to try to address the academic part. To address the non-academic part, there are several things I tend to recommend folks. One is, and most of this is actually kind of common sense stuff. One is address your self-care even more attentively than you normally do during the semester. For example, getting sufficient sleep. One of the things that students don't, I'm going to drink 9 Red Bulls and stay up all night and study, or borrow my friend's Adderall, or do something else they shouldn't do, okay? And the answer to all of that is we encode new memories when we sleep, okay? If we don't sleep, we don't encode new memories, so your studying is for naught. So getting sufficient sleep, addressing your nutrition, maybe getting a little bit, making sure you're taking a walk or getting a little bit of exercise. Self-care during a time when you're going to be stressed out even more than usual becomes even more important. And those are the things that we tend to kind of push towards each other. Again, understanding having a little bit of anxiety before an exam, normal. Okay, it tends to dissipate once the exam begins, because once you get involved with the exam, you're answering questions. You're not focusing on being nervous, anxious, upset.
Yeah. That's great. I think I need to take that advice to sleep and do my studying time, of course, but take time for myself. Yeah. So that's awesome. All right, so next question. I'm in an argument with my roommate. She won't clean up the dishes after herself, and I always find myself being the one to clean up the whole apartment. I'm terrified of confrontation and don't want to cause any conflict, but I still feel like this is unfair to me. What should I do?
So conflict is, it's everywhere, and we have to deal with it every day. So the first thing is stepping back and recognizing that, okay, if I continue not to say anything, then it's actually worse than not finding a way to talk about it. The roommate, for example, might not fully be aware of how upsetting it is to you. So first thing is trying to figure out what do I want to do? I want to focus on the problem, not the person. So when I do talk with the individual, kind of take a soft approach. And what I mean by that is you start out with, I'm not overstressed, tired, hungry when I have this conversation. I've thought about it. I know what I want to say. I might still be anxious. As Jim was saying, anxiety isn't necessarily a bad thing. It motivates us. And as long as we can manage it, enough, then we'll do fine. So approach that person with the intent of talking about, using I statements rather than you this. As soon as you say you this, a person can get very defensive and it's a blaming mode. Instead, approach it as a problem, but not the person as the problem. So I get really stressed, or I feel like really tense when I do the dishes. I'd really like to talk about another way that we do this. How do we share this? So using the I statements. Your body language should be soft, not necessarily mad already and yelling, and same thing with your tone of voice. So try to really keep that open and calm, and even curious about, maybe you weren't aware of this, but this is something that has been bothering me. Is there some way that we can figure out a better schedule for this? So it's trying to think about giving the other person the benefit of the doubt of, maybe we just need to solve this in a way rather than assuming that person knows how angry it makes me. And either way, giving yourself the courage, or having the courage, because the more you avoid the conflict, the more resentful and angry and emotional you get about it, and the further away you get from a solution.
Yeah, and it can build up and cause even more tension. That's really good. I liked what you said about the I statements, because I think that that's something that, you know, whenever you're having a problem like that, it's easy to say, oh, well, you're not doing the dishes, you're not doing this. So I think that's really good, the way you frame it. Appreciate that.
I'll add one quick comment,
Yeah.
that is, even how you sit with the person, instead of sitting directly across like we're going to get ready to lower our heads and run at each other,
Right.
sitting next to each other like Dr. Miller and I are doing and saying, here's this problem we have here in front of us.
Right.
How do we solve this? So it's not her issue, it's our issue that we're
Yeah.
going to solve together.
That's great.
You know, that reminds me, and just maybe helpful or not, but I remember many years ago I was really nervous about approaching my boss. My boss happened to be the president, so there was a reason to approach, and it was a very sticky issue. And I remember one thing that really I just decided to do in the moment was ask him to take a walk. It was easier for me to walk and move together instead of sitting across from each other and
Yeah.
trying to explain. And that really helped me dissipate some of that, not only that nervous anxiety and adrenaline that was going to happen, but the movement released some of that. I also wasn't looking straight at them.
Yeah.
I was talking with them, but we were doing something together in movement. So if that helps anyone.
Yeah,
that
that's
really
great.
helps.
That's really good advice. Okay, so next question. This one's a little bit heavier, so I'll warn you. I think I'm in an abusive relationship, but I love him. The lows are low, but the highs are so high. We get in really big fights and he says mean things to me, but he always apologizes and buys me gifts afterwards to make up for it. What should I do?
You take that first? I would take that first. Well, first of all, it's very understandable. Relationships are, you know, it's not just one layer of I love them, I hate them. There's factors involved that keep people in relationships. Also very concerned at the same time for that individual. So the first thing, maybe just come to us. If you're on campus, come to us, and we're not going to tell you right away, just get out of that relationship. We're going to work with you and figure out, help you, collaborate, as I said, join you in figuring out, you know, what you need to do or what you want to do in those situations.
Sure.
So I think some people are afraid to come thinking that we'll tell them this is wrong or this is. No, we work with you.
Or
We're
judge,
there.
yeah.
And yes, absolutely. And so I would say, and keep your supports open. Not only please come to us, but also talk to your friends about it. Be open. Because one of the things in abusive relationships we found is that individuals get cut off from their supports. And then they're afraid, because of judgment or for other reasons, they're afraid to say anything to other people. And that's the very thing you need to do, is open up to your supports and those who love you and care for you. And have those opportunities to hear from other people that we're here for you, we support you no matter what.
Yeah.
So talk to your supports, come see us if you can or would.
That's great. Okay, so this is also one that's geared towards, it's not as heavy, but it's geared towards graduating seniors, because this is an exciting but bittersweet time for a lot of people. So I'm a graduating senior, and all of my friends are getting jobs and know what their next steps are. They know what job they're going to have. They know where they're going to move. I don't have a job, and I still don't even know what I want to do with my degree. Am I a failure?
First, no, you're not a failure at all. So that's more common than individuals think. And so remembering that you got first of all, congratulations on graduating and everything. And most situations, people don't end up in the same job anyway. I think the statistics are 7 careers in a lifetime. Now that may not be, that's the average. But not, I know that there's this kind of false line that as soon as you graduate, you need to have a job. That's not realistic for many people right now, especially in this time, in this age. It might take, several months to a year to get a job. But being able to know that, okay, I've got the education, I've got, what do I want to do? Maybe this is a great time to step back, since you don't know what you want to do, then maybe you shouldn't be trying to get into a job. Right now is maybe taking some time to explore. Professional Edge is available. Once you graduate, they're still there to help you, go to and search for jobs and everything. But absolutely not. You are a success. You're graduating.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's a huge accomplishment, and I hope that people understand, don't overshadow that just because you don't know what your next steps are.
Absolutely.
I can't thank you both enough for being here. I've really appreciated you coming on today. We're going to put the phone number for the Counseling Center at the bottom of the screen.
Wonderful.
If you are a student and you need help, please use this number. Dr. Rice and Dr. Miller, thanks again for coming on today. And you guys, my audience, be sure to tune in next Wednesday for the final episode of Real Talk with Hannah Haerle. It is a senior special, and it's going to be one you don't want to miss. I'll see you next Wednesday. I'm Hannah Haerle, and this is Real Talk.